The Floyd Rose FRT-7 was made by Fernandes for only 1 year in 1984. However, I have heard it was made in 1985, and it was a direct response to the new Schaller Floyd Roses being sold in Japan at that time. And Fernandes decided to make the FRT-7 and undercut the Schaller Floyd Rose so they could sell a little more of them, and it succeeded, and is the last Floyd Rose to be made by Fernandes at this time. If you check the link below in the Fernandes Osaka blog, the guy who used to work in a factory actually discusses how the FRT-7 became to be, and he talks about, like I mentioned before, the Schaller Floyd Rose being sold in Japan, and they were kind of worried about that because obviously they were making them, and there was this new deal with Kramer and Schaller, and they decided to make this version, which is a pretty solid version, sell it for a little less, and according to this guy, they sold a lot of these, but it was only for 1 year. There's actually a lot of features that are pretty distinctive, particularly to the FRT-7. The first one, you look at it, like the whale tail version Floyd Rose made by Kahler from played on Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat. The Floyd Rose logo is it's a little bit more towards the edge, okay? It's not quite centerized, okay? There's actually some people that like taking these FRT-7s, putting a different block on them and using them on their 5150 replicas. Something really interesting is that this is not a licensed Floyd Rose product. This is an official Floyd Rose, okay? Even though that Schaller's making their own, but Fernandes must have been under contract or something with Floyd, and they were able to make these. So one difference is that I mentioned before is that the Floyd Rose logo is more towards the edge. Also, the sustain block is a casting, not a machine steel block. And also, if you notice, the holes where the intonation screws are, there's only 2 of them, whereas the Schaller ones always had 3. These were only available for 1 year with that Floyd Rose logo, and then these are eventually rebranded to the Head Crasher series, which I talked about in my FRT-5 video, which are basically identical to the original Floyd Rose FRT-7, just with the Head Crasher name on it, and they actually did some advancements to it later to make it and made it a pretty interesting licensed Floyd Rose, actually one of the best in my opinion. So basically, Fernandes rebranded all of their Floyd Rose type products to the Head Crasher series in 1986. In 1986, actually late 1985, you can see this in their secret catalog is what I found, is they have the FRT-7, it's the Head Crasher. Now, they also had the FRT-5 later in 1987, and what makes the FRT different than the FRT-4 and 5 rebranded in 1987 is that the FRT-7 Head Crasher you had the ability to lock it into place so it would never go out of tune. So here's an example right here. You pulled the trem to the side and this little triangle thing kind of blocked it into place. In 1987, they basically took the Floyd Rose version and rebranded it as a Head Crasher. The FRT-4, 5, and 7 are exactly the same at this point, except the FRT-5, you can adjust the string height. And the FRT-7, you can also adjust the string height and lock it into place. You can block it by moving the tremolo arm, as you see in this picture here, in this plastic thing that you bolted to the body. Now in 1988, the Head Crasher name disappeared and the base plate just said FRT on it, and they made the whole redesign. So if you missed my other videos, I discussed when they redesign a bridge, they just keep the same name, okay? That's what makes it a little confusing, okay? So this one is really interesting. So it's the same thing as a Head Crasher FRT-7, except now the fine tuners are on the back, kind of where you bolt when you loosen and tighten the strings up, okay? Which is actually a really clever design. This version of the FRT-7 lasted until 1992, where they did a slight redesign. It's basically the same thing as they changed the saddle design a little bit. It's like a little more blockier, it's a little more cosmetic appearance, but basically it's the same thing as the 1988 version. 1992 is also the last year you see it in the Fernandes catalog. So they kind of discontinue it, and they go on, they make this thing called the FRT-5 Pro and the FRT-10. They move on the Schaller bridges. It's a long story, but basically, in my opinion, it's one of the best licensed Floyd Roses of all time. I'm going to make a future video of all that relating to the best licensed Floyd Rose of all time, but it has its great place, and that's basically the end of the Floyd Rose Fernandes FRT-7.